This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. Janet Stewart is off. People protesting over sex ed and LGBTQ rights in schools faced off with counter-protesters outside the Manitoba Legislative Building today. It was part of a coast-to-coast movement called the 1 Million March for Kids. Police were monitoring the crowds in Winnipeg, but that didn't stop tension from building. CBC's Josh Crabb reports.
Hundreds of people chanting, "Leave our kids alone," squared off with counter-protesters shouting, "Love is louder." People got in each other's faces at times, with Winnipeg police forced to keep the two sides apart. It happened right outside the Manitoba Legislative Building, part of coast-to-coast protests over LGBTQ rights in schools. Judy Slaw has 13 grandkids and says she's concerned about the sexualization of children.
I don't believe that we should be talking about sex, especially in elementary school, at all.
Syrian Winnipegger Mohammed Hayek has a 2-year-old son. He came out because he's concerned children may get influenced in schools to have gender surgery. Hayek says it goes against his religion, and it's a decision which he says should wait until kids are more mature.
If the kids want to be like something they want, it's not the right time for them to make a decision. That's not the age that they have to do whatever they want.
He was part of a large, diverse crowd, including many children, gathered at the CN stage at the Forks. Masroor Ansari has grandchildren. He's Muslim and also came because of religious beliefs.
They should not be taught the sex-changing material.
Protesters walked with a police escort, marching west right along Broadway, continuing to chant until they reached their destination. The protesters gathered on the west lawn of the legislative grounds. When they got here, a group of counter-protesters was here to greet them.
Raise your signs and show them that hate does not win.
Laura Wiebe is an LGBTQ representative on the University of Manitoba's Social Work Association who helped organize the counter-protest. Wiebe wanted to support youth.
There's a message being spread that we are a danger, and we want to show that we're not. We want to keep this peaceful. We want to keep this separate from the people that might not share the same views as us.
People with pride flags called for trans youth to be protected. Anglican Church pastor Theo Robinson, who is trans, says religion is no reason not to support LGBTQ rights.
Especially if they're coming under the guise of being, people of God, wanting us to live biblically. If that's what you want, then we should be loving each other, not hating each other.
Despite efforts among both groups of protesters to stay separated, there were verbal confrontations. Winnipeg police say officers were there to ensure peaceful demonstrations and maintain public safety. The police say there were no incidents to report. Josh Crabb, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Coming up later in the show, we'll see how protests and counter-protests played out in other cities across the country today. A group of Manitobans are calling for changes to a deadly intersection where a crash not only claimed the lives of 17 seniors, but where they themselves were almost killed just weeks later. Now they're also demanding changes and say the province is moving too slow. This is their story.
It's a day the Spence brothers are still trying to comprehend.
We were already in pain and disbelief before the accident.
Hours after Rod and Travis Spence found out their mother had died, they were nearly killed in a car crash.
I remember that airbag hitting my face and broke my glasses right in half.
The two were in an SUV with their friend Laverne Ducharme and her daughter going down Highway 1 to Winnipeg when a truck crossing southbound on Highway 5 entered into the intersection, hitting them.
We knew we were going to get hit. We knew we were going to hit that vehicle. And that's where I started getting blackouts.
It was the same intersection, same circumstances where just 6 weeks earlier, 17 seniors on their way to a casino were killed.
That 17 Vitality skid mark were still there. Now there's ours. Our skid mark's there.
Physical marks left behind by the crashes that still haunt them as they struggle to overcome the mental and emotional ones.
We were the lucky ones, but the elders weren't.
The car they were in is now barely recognizable.
It's like, how the heck did it get out of there?
But the crash is still crystal clear. Ducharme was driving, and the voices of the first responders who saved her still echo in her head.
I just asked them for help. Get me out of here, but then they had to use that jaws of life and cut me out of there. But I could feel that stinging and that pain.
She was airlifted to hospital in critical condition and woke up 5 days later from a coma with a shattered ankle and fractured knee. Travis was seated behind her. He had a large gash over his eye, being held together with staples and stitches. Both brothers say their mom, who died just hours before, was watching over them.
She was right there protecting us still, our angel, our guardian angel.
But Rod says had safety changes been implemented immediately after the crash that killed the 17 seniors, theirs may not have happened.
Even before our accident, something should have been there.
Now the province has added rumble strips and new signage and say a full safety review expected in late fall could recommend more long-term plans. They want those to include lights.
Red light, green light. There was a lot of prior accidents on that highway. That 17 was the most devastating one.
As for the driver of the other vehicle, RCMP say he was charged under the Highway Traffic Act and fined $174.
RCMP are investigating after an excavator uncovered human remains in a field outside of Killarney. The discovery was made by workers at the site off of Highway 3 west of town yesterday afternoon. The identity of the remains is unknown right now, but police and an anthropology team are now searching the area. The NDP has opened up a lead over the Progressive Conservatives in the Manitoba election. This, according to a new survey by the Angus Reid Institute. CBC's Bartley Kivez reports.
Without further delay,
the leaders of Manitoba's three largest political parties stood before a business crowd in Winnipeg today, making their case why each should be premier in a matter of weeks. A new survey by the nonprofit Angus Reid Institute suggests one of them is now more likely to get that gig. The poll of 990 Manitoba adults conducted earlier this month found the NDP out ahead. It suggests 47% of voters favor the New Democrats compared to 41% for the PCs and 9% for the Liberals. The poll also found voters have a more favorable view of NDP leader Wab Kinew than they have of PC leader Heather Stephenson.
What the NDP is saying is resonating a little bit more with Manitoba residents, certainly those in Winnipeg. Then Heather Stephenson, and that 6-point lead has built itself up again, probably looking pretty good for the NDP, but still 2 weeks to go.
The poll also suggests the NDP has opened up a 22 percentage point lead in Winnipeg, home to more than half of Manitoba's seats. Based on previous elections, this puts the NDP in position to assume power. Kinew and Stephenson weren't willing.
You vote on election day. And so our team's mentality is that we're still one vote behind until all the ballots are counted.
Not aware of that, and the only poll that matters is on election day.
Party leader Dougald Lamont was even more dismissive of the survey.
If the only thing we're ever going to care about is polls, what the hell's the point of having a campaign? What's the hell the point of having a platform? What's the hell the point of having debates today?
This is just one survey. A probe research poll is expected soon. If that one shows the NDP ahead by a similar margin, then the prospect of a third consecutive PC term drifts further away. Bartley Kivez, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Manitoba Progressive Conservatives are promising to open hundreds of new childcare spaces throughout the province if they're re-elected. The Tory plan would see the opening of 4 ready-to-move centres in Winnipeg and 2 more in Selkirk and Gimli. The childcare centres would have 642 new openings for infant, preschool and school-aged children. PC candidate Rochelle Squires says the new spaces would be open within 6 to 8 months of a third PC term.
A very fast, innovative model to actually build spaces and create childcare in a quick manner.
The PCs also promised to expand $10 a day daycare to include in-service days and summer holidays, and double the amount Manitobans can claim on the province's tax credit for fertility treatment. Squires says those pledges would be fulfilled within 100 days of a new PC government. 5,000 homes will get geothermal energy free of charge if the NDP are elected this fall. St. James candidate Adrian Salas says an NDP government would cover the cost for the equipment and installation, which is estimated at around $26,000 per home. Geothermal energy is heat generated from within the earth. Salas says the NDP's commitment to cover the costs would be the first of its kind in Canada.
This is different in that we're proposing what is ultimately just a month-to-month thermal energy as a service approach, where families just simply sign up. They don't have to worry about all that upfront work and project management anymore. And that's been a key barrier to advancing the use of geothermal in other jurisdictions. We're tackling that.
The NDP isn't saying yet which homeowners or types of homes would be eligible for this energy conversion. Join us tomorrow night as Manitoba's 3 main party leaders go head-to-head in a televised provincial leaders debate. We're teaming up with CTV and Global News to bring you an hour-long commercial-free debate. It's happening right here at 6 p.m. It'll be moderated by Mary Agnes Welch from Probe Research with questions from a panel of journalists. We'll also bring you live analysis immediately after the debate at 7 p.m. You can watch that on our website and on our CBC Manitoba YouTube channel. Autumn signals the start of the respiratory virus season, and the Chief Public Health Officer is warning of an uptick of cases of COVID, flu, and other respiratory illnesses. But right after Dr. Brent Roussin gave Manitobans an update, political candidates also weighed in. CBC's Emily Brass has more.
Fall is upon us in Manitoba, and so that means, as usual, we can expect much more respiratory illness.
In his first appearance in months, Dr. Brent Roussin said new vaccines are on the way for COVID and influenza, and he wants Manitobans to get them.
Both of these vaccines are effective. They are both safe to receive at the same time. So that's what we are recommending for Manitobans.
But right as Roussin urged people to get the shots to ease pressure on the healthcare system, the message got political. The leaders of Manitoba's 2 biggest parties are calling for no more lockdowns.
The unintended consequences of locking people in their homes and shutting down businesses is devastating. And we've learned from that. We've got tools in place right now to deal with the rest of that, where we can protect the most vulnerable.
But Liberal leader Dougald Lamont called Heather Stephenson's remarks a horrifying continuation of what PCs did during the pandemic.
To prevent a lockdown, you have to make sure that you're doing things to prevent that lockdown, and this government is doing nothing of that. So it just sounds like if there's another outbreak of COVID, they're just going to let it rip.
Wab Kinew also declared there'll be no more lockdowns if the NDP are elected, and criticized the Conservative government's handling of the pandemic.
The idea of bringing our economy to a halt again is not something we can contemplate in the future of Manitoba.
Was it a mistake?
But the way to prevent the mistake was cutting the ICU beds.
Roussin expects a significant increase in respiratory cases soon. He says the vaccine should roll out next month. Emily Brass, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Work on a new Winnipeg neighbourhood started today. Billed as a city within a city, people in the new Southwood Circle will have everything they need within walking distance. And it's all at the University of Manitoba. CBC's Matt Humphrey explains.
This community is going to be one of the biggest new urban redevelopments in the history of the city of Winnipeg.
1, 2, 3.
With construction beginning in earnest next year, the hope is all of this will soon look like this. The plan is for Southwood Circle to be a complete community. Restaurants, groceries, shopping, all within a short walk. And among the amenities, a learning lodge from the National Centre for Truth and Reconciliation with up to 70 staff.
Cultural space, research space, place where survivors can come and learn the history, find their records, families can come together and share and understand culture, as well as a non-Indigenous community is welcome to learn the truth about Indian Residential School.
There's a push for more people and development to come to downtown Winnipeg.
I have to pinch myself to make sure this isn't a dream.
But Deputy Mayor and Area Councillor Janice Luke says Southwood Circle doesn't take away from that.
We cannot move the University of Manitoba. That is a fact. The university has got a lot of land to grow. Should the university have remained downtown many years ago when it was there originally? That's debatable. But it didn't, and here it is. So how do I square this development off with the need for development downtown? The federal government is committing accelerator funding to the City of Winnipeg to move faster on housing development, focus that development in downtown.
The university purchased the land 15 years ago.
This is a critical part of the future development of the University of Manitoba, and I also believe a really important contribution to what we need as a society to build sustainable communities.
I'm standing where the Southwood Golf Course once was. The clubhouse was right over there, and soon it'll be Winnipeg's newest neighborhood. But developers want it to be so much more than that. When complete, the Southwood development would ideally attract 20,000 people. But factor in the U of M campus and the Smart Park development, and developers say we're seeing closer to a 60,000 population expected to be right here. And that's larger than the population of Brandon. Matt Humphrey, CBC News, Winnipeg.
And our meteorologist, John Sauter, joins us. And John, I know I'm not alone in that I'm still trying to hold on to every little bit of summer. I'm still wearing my sandals. It's been really nice this week.
Yeah.
We're hoping for more warm weather. A little bit of rain that you're tracking, though.
Yeah, that's to the west of us, and it's really weakened, and I'll show you that on satellite. But good news, you know, as we look at the long range, it looks like these warmer temps will stick around for quite a while yet. All right, let's start with the satellite and radar. And you can see the cloud out to the west of us. Zoom in on that a little bit because, yeah, you can also see on radar a few showers, but through the last few hours, they've been really weakening. This cloud cover here has been holding back the temperature in Brandon and up into areas along Highway 16 like Gladstone, probably a few degrees cooler. Here in Winnipeg, we got to about 24 this afternoon. This is what it's doing right now. We're at 21, so we've lost a few degrees in the last hour. A drop of 3, really. Dew point way down there. It is a dry atmosphere, so some of that rain that I just showed you in the dry atmosphere is likely evaporating before it reaches the ground. Winds fairly light today, so a pretty pleasant summer/fall day. This is what this rain does as we move through the evening hours. It does move into the Red River Valley with some cloud cover, so again, mild overnight, but we could see some showers through the Red River Valley. Southwest, very slight chance. I'd say that chance tonight is about 30% or less. Thursday, some of us see sunshine. Notice that Winnipeg's right on the edge of what is cloud cover and some showers in the southeast that really connected to a system that'll bring a lot more rain in Minnesota and North Dakota. And we've got high pressure there right behind me, and it's going to move into the eastern prairies and just kind of keep this rain to the south a little bit. I've been saying this for a couple of days. It's been a real battle between the forecast models on how far north this rain will move. So a chance again on Friday morning of some showers, but the Trans-Canada Highway, Winnipeg, Brandon, all points in between right on the northern edge of that rain. And then as we get into Friday night and on into Saturday, again, skies look to clear, but look at all the rain to the south of us and this high pressure just keeping that to the south. So it's really interesting how this is going to play out over the next 48 hours. Forecast models have been changing it up a little bit, but you can see that most of the rain is south of the Trans-Canada, maybe out through areas like Piney, Sprague, and then off into northwestern Ontario, but the high pressure is kind of keeping it down to the southeast. So I still have some showers or chances of showers in my forecast, but it'll be just one of those things where we'll watch and see how far north that will move. 13 in the morning. A cloudier sky tomorrow than what we saw today. And again, a chance of an afternoon, evening, overnight shower. Winds are a little breezier tomorrow, about 25 to 30. Also on Friday and Saturday. And then we have another chance on Saturday, late day and through the day Sunday of some showers. But none of this is really a washout type situation. Then you look at next week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We are drier once again with temperatures in the low 20s.
All right, John, we're all going to be keeping a close eye on that forecast.
Thank you.
Well, Monday was a special day for women's hockey. The first professional women's hockey league draft was held. Manitoban defender Jocelyn Larocque was picked second overall by Toronto. 6 teams have been announced, and a 24-game regular season will start in January. So, what does this mean for women's hockey? Well, we spoke to Jocelyn Larocque about that earlier today.
Toronto is pleased to pick in the second overall pick Jocelyn Larocque.
I'm just so excited to be a part of the first year for the PWHL. I'm excited to be selected to play in Toronto. So just a lot of joy and excitement.
It comes back to Larocque at the line. A high shot, scores! Jocelyn Larocque.
I mean, this is historic, really. And, this will be the first real professional women's hockey league to ever exist, and professional on all levels. And I've been a part of, the CWHL in the past, and, we had world-class players. The caliber of hockey was professional, but unfortunately the infrastructure behind it wasn't. And this is where all of that's going to come together. And we have amazing, people backing it up, people supporting it, and not only supporting it because they want to, it's because they see it as, a money-making venture. So it's something that, the world loves hockey. And so it's something great to be a part of. And now, young girls can dream to play professional hockey, and they're not going to get told that their dream is silly or not able to happen for them. So that's pretty special.
The opposing team, and you want to stand.
Coming up, we'll have more on rival protest groups taking to the streets today in cities across the country. One group demonstrating against LGBTQ issues being addressed in the classroom, and the other voicing their support for diversity in the curriculum. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. Protests and counter-protests have been taking place in cities across the country. Groups are squaring off over issues surrounding gender and sexual education in schools. CBC's Jamie Strachan looks at the issues and the demonstrations.
Dubbed by organizers as the 1 Million March for Children, thousands came out in cities across the country, airing multiple grievances about how gender identity and sexual orientation are taught in Canadian schools.
We see examples of age-inappropriate material, books in our classrooms. There's a lot of concern from many in the community that it's not appropriate.
One of the most contentious issues, the right of children to identify by the pronoun of their choice.
We must be able to control how we raise them, what kind of values they retain, and for parents to not have a say in the conversation is not going to work out.
They don't have the maturity to decide to drink or to have guns or to vote. How the hell they have the right to change their sex without even the knowledge of their parents?
In some cities, protests were met by often larger counter-protests.
I see a mix of absolute hatred and bigotry. I also see a collection of people who are just scared and want the best for their kids and are afraid.
We felt it was important that people congregated here to make people know, and especially queer and trans kids and racialized kids know, that there are people here who have their back.
Tempers flared at some events. In Toronto, dozens of police officers kept the sides apart. The issue of pronoun or gender identification differs by province and school board. For example, at the Toronto District School Board, Canada's largest, schools can only inform parents of a pronoun change with a student's consent. In New Brunswick and Saskatchewan, parental consent is required for students under 16. New Brunswick Premier Blaine Higgs doubled down on that policy today.
The situation is pretty straightforward. It's kind of amazing that there's even a discussion of what the role of parents should be with their kids' lives.
For some, an issue thought long resolved. For others, a fight as fresh as ever. Jamie Strachan, CBC News, Toronto.
It's the second day of the United Nations General Assembly in New York. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau took part in talks about the climate crisis. Trudeau will deliver remarks before the UN Security Council later today on the war in Ukraine. Earlier, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky had some harsh words in a special debate in the council. Chris Reyes has this report.
The war in Ukraine and climate solutions front and center as the UN's General Assembly High-Level Week continues, with hundreds of world leaders attending. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau giving key speeches starting at the Climate Ambition Summit convened by the Secretary General. Canada was one of 34 nations invited to speak to share practical solutions, including funding for climate projects. At the forum, Trudeau made this promise.
We will cut our emissions by at least 40% by the year 2030 and reach net zero no later than 2050. By the end of this year, we will be announcing our framework to cap emissions from the oil and gas sector.
At the Security Council, a highly anticipated appearance. President Zelensky was invited to speak at a special meeting on Ukraine.
Thank you so much.
He presented his peace plan to end the war, one that would require member states to step in and guarantee his country's security and punish war crimes by Russia.
We should not wait for the aggression to be over. We need to act now. Our aspiration for peace should drive the reform.
Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov was not in the room during Zelensky's speech, but its ambassador to the UN repeatedly challenged the Prime Minister of Albania, who was chairing the meeting, for allowing Zelensky to speak in the first place.
I must say that coming from you, all this lecture of violating the rules in this building is quite an impressive shoot. There is a solution for this if you agree. You stop the war and President Zelensky will not take the floor.
President Zelensky also left the room when Lavrov spoke. The Russian foreign minister unmoved by the declarations of solidarity from leaders in the council, including Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken. Chris Reyes, CBC News, New York.
It's business as usual at Ford Canada. The company and its unionized workers have reached a contract deal and avoided a strike.
We have reached a tentative agreement with Ford Motor Company that has been unanimously and proudly endorsed by our entire Master Bargaining Committee. We're very proud of the work that they've done over these many, many weeks, and now we will take it to our members with that endorsement.
The tentative deal was reached last night after negotiations were extended for 24 hours. The union, Unifor, represents about 5,600 auto workers at Ford plants and parts distribution centres in Ontario and Alberta. The contract still has to be ratified by the workers. Unifor now has to negotiate deals with GM and Stellantis in the U.S. The United Auto Workers Union has been staging strikes against all of Detroit's Big Three. Thousands of doctors in Britain were off the job today, joining senior doctors on the picket lines. Senior and junior doctors took the action for the first time ever over a pay dispute with the government. And that's raising concerns about added pressure on Britain's struggling national healthcare system. Abby Kuathasan has this report from London.
Both junior and senior doctors have walked off the job in an ongoing pay dispute with the Rishi Sunak government. The government has offered an at least 6% raise to most doctors and about 9% on average for junior doctors, but they say that is not enough to match with inflation. Now, junior doctors are those who've graduated from medical school. They're training to become GPs or specialists. Some of them have about 10 years of experience, and they make up about 45% of the NHS medical workforce. So you can imagine the impact that their absence will have on patients. Hospital leaders are concerned about their absence. They say that this will test the limits of safety. They say that appointments and treatments, including cancer care, has to have been postponed because of these ongoing strikes.
The biggest impact is on the surgery for our cancer patients. Although this is what you would term planned elective care, clearly it's essential that these patients are able to have the surgery for their cancer within a timely fashion. Harm will be coming to patients as a consequence of the repeated cumulative industrial action that's gone on for so long.
Now, England faces a shortage of doctors. They are having a difficult time recruiting personnel from the EU following Brexit, and some junior doctors here told me that they're considering moving to other countries like Canada and Australia. Abby Kuathasan, CBC News, London.
Doctors in Alberta say they're seeing a rise in infections caused by a tapeworm. We'll have more after the break. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. Doctors in Alberta have a new warning for people and their pets as they notice rising infections from a tapeworm that humans can pick up from their dogs. As Julia Wong explains, there are worries that it's being underreported.
For Dave Rajat, feeling sick was the first sign something was off.
I had jaundice, had some pain in my gallbladder area.
After weeks of tests, biopsies on a tumor, and a scare he might have cancer, the Saskatchewan man learned last year he had a disease caused by a tapeworm known as Echinococcus multilocularis. Had you ever heard about this before?
I hadn't, no, never, it wasn't. So when the doctor phoned originally and told us what it was, we had to write it down, and then we were Googling it.
The tapeworm lives in the intestines of coyotes, and their feces contains eggs from the parasite. Humans get infected if they come into contact, typically through their pets.
And so this is the Echinococcus multilocularis infection.
This doctor says a person may not know they're sick for years, but tapeworm larvae will grow, usually in the liver, and form a mass that can destroy liver tissue. He says Alberta has become a hotspot for the disease, with the majority of patients pet owners.
This parasite was likely imported from Europe, underwent a slight mutation, and has now has a stronghold in Alberta.
And this researcher says it's very likely the number of cases is much higher.
But we suspect that more people are probably carrying the parasite and just haven't presented with symptoms yet because it's got such a long kind of incubation period. And so it's tough to say really kind of the infection rate of this parasite right now.
The disease is rare, but Waldner says people should stay alert in Alberta and beyond.
I think it's very realistic to expect at some point cases will be diagnosed across the country.
As for Rajat, he muses he may have become sick through his dog, who worked with him on his cattle farm and had a tumor a few years ago. Rajat is now on medication, but says it's difficult not knowing what the future holds.
I would say that's probably one of the biggest things, is just the mental side of the unknowns.
Experts say there are things you can do to reduce your chance of infection. They recommend washing your hands often when around pets, fencing off your gardens, and deworming your animals. Julia Wong, CBC News, Edmonton.
A new football helmet developed by a Montreal startup has made it to the big league. The NFL is testing the new helmets after it put out calls for ways to reduce concussions. It's called the Gladiator, and the University of Montreal's football team is among the first to get to try it out. CBC's Jennifer Yoon has more.
There's a new helmet that's going to hit the fields of the NFL, and it's been developed right here in Montreal.
It's very light, it's very tight too, but it's comfortable.
How often do you get hit in your job?
Every play.
Every play?
Yeah, every play. Every play I have a contact with the other people or the player.
The hope is that this helmet would better absorb the impact. The idea is that it would help prevent traumatic brain injuries, but that's a really complicated puzzle to solve.
So you have the impact component here, and you have after that some liner that is there for comfort.
There are 3D printed shock absorbers inside this helmet, particular geometric shapes that are lighter and more efficient than those in traditional helmets, according to developers.
What we're tapping into here is the possibility to have each of these pads being tuned for specific use, either your position, your style of play, the type of impact that's going to be happening. For the first stages for football helmet, but we're hoping to apply this to other application, other use.
We certainly don't want to discourage innovation in the space, but the reality is for solving the concussion crisis, it's probably not just going to be a better helmet. There's not really a good way of preventing the brain from sloshing around in the skull, and a helmet just can't do that.
So will this helmet completely eliminate concussions in football? Probably not, but developers are hoping that it'll be a part of the solution, as are researchers who gave them advice early on in their development.
That's called a leap of faith, which sometimes it's okay to do. Sometimes we're never going to know for certain everything. And here they took a risk. That's part of human nature.
15 NFL teams are trying out the helmets now. Jennifer Yoon, CBC News, Montreal.
We bring in meteorologist John Sauter again. And John, all over my social media for the past couple days, I've been seeing the most incredible photos of the Northern Lights. And I'm never awake late enough to get outside and see them.
Well, 2 nights ago, around 10 o'clock, straight up, even over South Winnipeg, you could see them even in the city. So on the 16th of September, there was a magnetic storm from the sun kind of working its way this way. So 18th and 19th is when we started to see pictures like this. Now, the picture I'm going to show you here is from 2022. I actually took that picture. This is from Lake of the Woods back in 2022, but that's the kind of thing we've been seeing and Brittany's been seeing on her social media. So here's a little explainer about how auroras form. So we get these magnetic storms that come from the sun, and charged protons and electrons are emitted from the sun. And here you can see the magnetic field around the Earth. Well, these little particles are attracted to the Earth in the magnetic field, and it's easy to kind of get into the atmosphere where the field is weakest at the North Pole or the South Pole. And aren't we lucky that we live a little closer to the North Pole, so we get to see this on a regular basis. So then what happens? The electrons collide with various molecules in the atmosphere at different altitudes, and at different altitudes that causes the different colors based on the height and the type of molecules that they're reacting with. So you can see that there's pink and green and blue and red, and it depends on the height and the type of molecules, whether they're oxygen or nitrogen. So that's what we're seeing. We're seeing an interaction between these protons and electrons that come from the sun interacting with molecules in our upper atmosphere. And hopefully we'll see a lot more of that in the near future. These are the temperatures. Pretty comfortable to get outside and look up in the sky in the evening hours. Still 22 down at the Forks, 23 in Morris. Back to southwestern Manitoba, a little bit cooler around Brandon, Melita. That's where we've seen a little bit more in the way of cloud cover. Even a few rain showers trying to reach the ground through the day. It's 21 over in Kenora. That's the warmest it's been all week, I think. And then up to the north, still very, very mild for this time of year. We've got everything 19 Island Lake right through Norway House, and the west 10 degrees right now in Churchill. And another fairly warm day on the way for tomorrow. Right now, not much cloud over northwestern Ontario. A little farther out toward Dryden there is, but lows tonight under a partly cloudy sky will be between 10 and 13 degrees. And then here in the southeast, we'll see a very slim chance of a shower. Most of that south of the border, but it may get its way up into southern Manitoba, mostly here in the southeast, maybe as far west as Portage La Prairie or Morden, but just partly cloudy skies in the west and getting down there around 6 or 7 degrees. We've got lots of 6s and 7s in the northwest, a chance of evening showers, then clearing in Churchill. And look at the temperatures for tomorrow, and lots of sunshine. 14 for a high in Churchill, 20s, 19s and 20s, even 21s across the north. Sun cloud mix in the west, 22 to 23. But then we have a slight chance of an afternoon shower farther east and farther south. Not so much in Gimli and Barons River, and just cloudy in Pinawa. And then over into northwestern Ontario, we've got a chance of some late day rain in Fort Francis. Otherwise, a sun cloud mix in 23, a cloudy 22 tomorrow in Kenora.
All right, thanks so much, John.
You bet.
Coming up, a Manitoba family got the chance to appear on a popular game show. We'll hear what the experience was like after the break. Stay with us. It's a popular game show you most likely know, and you've certainly heard the theme song for Family Feud Canada. It's featured some notable Canadians over the years, and certainly some very memorable families. Well, next Monday, another Manitoba family will be gracing the screen, the Morose family. And joining me now is Rhonda Morose-Pretty. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Well, Rhonda, I hear the show, first off, has been a big part of your family over the years. So where does the love of the show come from?
Oh, it just comes right back to Mom and Dad watching it, all 6 of us in one couch, watching it every night with Richard Dawson.
And I know that you guys had to put together an audition video for this. So tell us a little bit about yours.
Ours, we decided to go with a country hillbilly theme. And we had it in my brother's hay shed, and we dressed up like hillbillies, and one sister played the washboard, my son Richie played the spoons, my nephew played the fiddle, and my sister changed the song from "We're here for the party" to "We're here for the money." And it caught their eyes right away.
I love it. So how long was it before you found out you were going to be on the show after you put in that audition tape?
Well, you know, when you put in the audition tape, they said they'll get a hold of you within the next 4 to 8 weeks. They were a hold of us in 2 weeks. And then we had to do more things. And they said, again, 4 to 8 weeks. They contacted us the next day. And it was like, holy moly, guys, this is going really fast. So that kind of made us feel like, okay, we must be doing something right.
I heard you had a bit of a social media campaign going.
Unbelievable support from the communities around Hazel Ridge, the Paw, Minnedosa. Unbelievable. Jerry D couldn't believe for such a small town that we had such support. Like, where did you find these people, he said.
So I can see some video in there, some pictures, that there's somebody costumed there, dressed up like a large pierogi. What is the story behind that? And we see you dressed in your Ukrainian clothes, so some Ukrainian heritage. Give us the background there.
Well, we're proud Ukrainians from Hazel Ridge. And my sister is Patricia Petaha, and she made that costume all on her own. And she goes around Manitoba supporting the Ukrainian bilingual program in Manitoba. She even has a book that she made, and when she goes into the classrooms, all volunteer, and she leaves a book with them as well, and she reads it, and the kids get so excited when she comes into the classroom or in a parade.
I love it. A little taste of Manitoba that you were bringing to the small screen there. So I know, Rhonda, my family, super competitive. So this would be a hard one for me. But how did you decide who to bring with you?
You know what? We are a large family of 6, 5 sisters and a brother. I wanted all 5 sisters, but 2 sisters said no. So then we went down to the nephews and my son. And so, yeah, some didn't want to do it. And anything and everything, but no, we were the right ones, you know, couple young ones, couple old ones. Perfect.
And I heard that you guys were preparing every week. Tell me a little bit about the prep that goes into it.
Every Wednesday night we would have a different host, and you have to feed us supper because we're Ukrainian, we're hungry. And then we would play the game. I'd make them watch one show of it, and yeah, we prepared.
Well, it's going to be an exciting night, of course. This is Monday that your show is going to be on. Exciting night for your hometown. What are the plans for the watch party?
We are having a party at the Oak Bank Hotel on Monday night at 7:30. The hotel is ready for us. And anyone and everyone, please feel welcome to come. More the better.
Well, we will certainly be cheering you on. Rhonda Morose-Pretty, we will all be watching, and we wish you the best of luck. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
It might be surprising to some, but interest in playing hockey has dipped in some parts of Canada. Now, one minor hockey association has launched a campaign with the goal of attracting more diverse groups of young people to play. CBC's Tyler Cheese stick handles this story.
Brothers Arjun and Ajit Kalarai have been playing ice hockey for most of their lives.
I've been playing ice hockey since I was 5 years old.
I've been playing since I was 5 years old as well.
At 17 and 15 years old, they both play for the Brampton 45s and say they can't get enough of the game.
I'm glad I can zone out, and even if I have stuff going on, I'm glad hockey's kind of an outlet for me.
It's fun, it's competitive. I've been doing it since I was a kid and I've always loved it.
Brampton is home to a growing hockey scene, something the Ontario Minor Hockey Association wants to see all across the province.
The beauty of hockey is it is a sport you can play for life. You can continue to coach, you can officiate, you can keep playing as an adult. It's something that will carry through your whole life.
The Ontario Minor Hockey Association says enrollment numbers have been down since the pandemic, which is why they're starting a new registration campaign reminding potential players and their families that hockey is fun.
We're endeavoring to bring new families and new players to our game. And part of the way we're doing that is to simply talk about how fun the game of hockey is, and for parents and families to look at hockey as a sport of choice.
Part of that drive is to appeal to newcomers to Canada. That's why, for the first time in the association's history, they're running ads in Mandarin and Punjabi.
We're talking about improving the sport in terms of getting to an audience that is greater than it is today. And so we're looking at the diversity and inclusiveness of hockey.
He says the best way to get people interested is to let them try it out.
It's just about getting a stick in someone's hand and actually trying to encourage just the play of the game and understanding it. And I think that's what we're focusing on.
The campaign is appropriately titled Hockey is Fun and is now running on social media. Tyler Cheese, CBC News, Brampton.
Still ahead, John Sauter's back with your 7-day forecast. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News.
Well, tomorrow, late in the day, we do have a chance of showers that may last into Friday. This system will be south of us in Winnipeg, just on the edge of it, and then another one Saturday night and through the day Sunday with a chance of showers. But one thing is for sure, temperatures stay on the warm side of normal through the weekend and certainly into next week. So it still feels kind of like summer. Summer may be in its final days, though, but it's the first day of harvest for about 10,000 sunflowers flowers in Montreal.
The garden has proven to be a very popular destination for visitors. Here's your daily lift.
C'est grâce à l'audace de toutes ces personnes que nous y sommes arrivés.
The sunflowers were planted this spring to brighten up an industrial area and introduce some green space. Not only the seeds will be harvested, but there are plans to use the stalks and leaves for everything from eco-furniture, soundproofing, and dye for textiles.
Furniture.
I love it. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, I didn't know you could make furniture, though, out of sunflowers.
You know what? I feel like people are very creative. You can do something with anything these days.
That's right.
We'll see you back here again tomorrow night. Have a wonderful evening.
Good night.